Gentlemen, welcome. I would like to start off with maybe a question that I'll probably start with Cleve and then kind of go through the rest of the panel. Discussion more around how do you even define innovation at large companies? I mean, there is a certain concept of if I'm working on my next generation product or my next roadmap, is that innovation? Or is innovation something completely different? So I would love to sort of get you guys' perspective on how do you really define innovation?
Great question. So, yes, a roadmap, where you're going with the product, is innovation, but it isn't the innovation that I think we want to talk about here. The innovation into a large business or a large company goes unpromoted. I mean, at a large company, they're focused on their roadmap. They're focused on their next product. They're focused on where they're going to go next and how much they're going to sell. Companies don't promote innovation. They don't tell people, they don't tell their employees, hey, if you innovate, come to us, meet with us, present to us your idea, present to us what you're doing. Let us help you get it off the ground. And if you come up with great innovation ideas, let us reward you. Let us give you, we used to give employees $1,000. They came up with a great idea and they presented it to us. Here's $1,000, go do your project, go do your innovation. And we even allowed them to put their names on the patent if it was patentable technology. So anyway, you have to promote innovation within corporations, and I know that most corporations don't do that. So that's probably, that's definitely my answer to that question is companies don't promote innovation.
My view of the innovation in a big company, I used to work for LG Electronics to qualify myself as a big company. And I classified, first of all, innovation has to come out of the desperation. If we don't have an innovation, then you may not see the future of the company. That means the innovation has to be done within the company with input from inside the company and from outside the company. I classify the three innovations. One is the sustaining innovation. That means I call the everyday innovation. Sometimes I call the plus alpha project. It's the carving out what is the new stuff you are doing from your existing product line. And then you work on that new element. I call it coloring. Whatever you improve, you put the coloring of the new stuff. Then you can figure it out how much improvement you got. Next one is the disruptive innovation. That one is that you need the capital to do it, and sometimes we call it tear down and rebuild. That means you have to tear down and rebuild your business plan and rebuild your product line. And another one is very similar to the sustained innovation. It's called everyday innovation, some I mentioned already. And what you call everyday, you improve the efficiency. Sometimes we call the efficiency innovation. And if you know about the Toyota, with the TPS system, it's the Toyota production system. They innovate every day, and idea come in, and the next day, that idea implemented. Whether it's a good idea or a bad idea, they implement. They found out whether it's indeed a good idea or not.
I think PK defined very well the daily innovation and sustain and disruptive innovation as a two big category of innovation. I believe innovation can be done in a big company, and there are a few things which needs to be done. Number one is first you have to have belief the top management, the leadership of the company have to have a belief that first of all, every problem can be solved. We just need to find how. And the secondly, whatever, there's nothing perfect, which means whatever is the way of doing things you have, there's always room of improvement. But the problem is this, in many big companies, they are all driven by this P&L BU thing. And if you do not have a separate structure where you do a separate business model to fund those ideas and really incentivize people to do those things, it never grows from there. So you need to, as a leader, you need to find a set of people, because not everybody, not every genius engineer can be innovator as well. You have to think out of the box a little bit. So you have to identify those folks across the organization. Instead of making a separate organization, you need to find across the organization. You have to make a more of a parallel thing where you drive those things and really incentivize those people, incentivize on filing pattern, incentivize on filing, creating things which can even disrupt the businesses, right? But have a separate fund of that, and that helps in our organization.
Thanks. So it's an interesting question about innovation in large organizations, in corporations. Let me just start off by saying every corporation today is under threat. For every corporation, there's 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, sometimes 100 other startups trying to disrupt the innovation in one place, or disrupt the corporation one way or another. Okay? So we live in the innovation space in corporations. We're living under constant threat. Okay? And when you talk about innovation in a corporation, it's not a single dimensional. A lot of startups have a very focused space they're working in. They're working on innovation around the idea, the concept, how they want to bring it to market, how they're going to drive and disrupt the company. In a corporation, it's much more complicated. We're working on multiple different dimensions of innovation. We're innovating the product. We're innovating technology. We're innovating our go-to-market. We're innovating our business models. Because all of those are under threat right now on multiple different fronts. If you just look at a simple business model of a subscription-based business model, who would have thought a subscription-based business model would be so successful? For a corporation that's lived for the majority of its life in a transaction-based business model, you're going to have to innovate because you can't sit still there, right? Whilst you're doing innovation there, you have to drive innovation around your products and around your go-to-market. The omni-channel has become very, very important. How you go to market can't be relied on the traditional ways of going to market, so you're innovating there. So there's multiple forms of innovation. The most important thing in a corporation now, I think, is not whether you have an innovation practice or not. That's not an option anymore. You have to have an innovation practice. The challenge is, how do you coordinate innovation in an organization that delivers true value over and above what a startup can do? And then also have an innovation process that not only looks at what you can do internally, but sometimes you have to look outside of your corporation. And you know, Raghib, your company was acquired by Marvell, probably because they saw there was a better opportunity for me to innovate and move faster through acquisition or partnerships and those kind of things. So the innovation happening at that level as well. So it's a very interesting question. It's very simple in the way you asked it, but very, very complicated in how to respond to it, because there's multiple levels of innovation that's going on in a corporation. It's getting more difficult, not easier, but it's also more fun than it used to be.
Yeah, but one, from a strategy type function that's keeping an eye on what's happening in every single sphere you're getting disrupted. And all of that has to come together in theory in some process where you can start to prioritize. Here's why I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. I'm not going to worry about these three things. How would you go about setting up that process?
How long do we have?
3 minutes.
No, I'll try as quick as I can on this, right? So the first thing is, like, you have to change the culture in a corporation. The culture has to be one that embraces innovation rather than tries to fend off innovation or change. So if you can create a culture that's a learning culture with a growth mindset, then you're going to be successful in being able to drive innovation in a corporation. Now, the question about processes, ideas, you've got to be open for ideas coming from all different parts of the organization. And then you've got to have a structure to what are you going to do with those ideas. There's no point asking employees to come up with ideas or asking colleagues to come up with ideas. When they come up with ideas, nothing happens to it. So you've got to be able to take that idea and funnel it through structured processes. And sometimes the idea, if it's something that's unique and different from what the corporation is doing, we'll funnel it through an innovation model or innovation funnel that we've developed. I'm talking specifically about what we do at HP. If the idea is related to a core business that we're driving, that's important, that could be important to that business, it's funneled into the roadmap process for that business. If an idea is something around innovation around business model or go-to-market, then it's run into those parts of the organization. But then there's one way of tracking those ideas all the way through, and those are being viewed and evaluated very differently than some of the other core parts of the business. So a very simplistic answer, because it's very difficult to answer that in the time we have completely, but there's structure, then there's culture, then there's structure, then there's the systems that you need to put in place, and then it's what do you do with those ideas and how do you proliferate and how you incubate them. The role I have in HP isn't about innovation, it's innovation and incubation. When an idea goes through a corporation, a core business has certain P&L goals. We have to meet certain revenue goals, we have to meet certain margin goals, profit goals, and deliver certain ROI. You can't do that with a new idea that just comes through. So there's an incubation period that you have to put the idea through. That idea has to incubate, you have to take it through and say, okay, there's a proven route to revenue, number one. Number two, there's a proven route to profitability. It generates money and I can make money. Very, very important things. And the third thing in the incubation part of the process, before you can pass this on, is proven route to scale. Will this idea scale at a level that makes sense for us to take this into the big part of the organization? Until you met those three criteria, if you move an idea or a concept from innovation or incubation into the core organization, 9 times out of 10 it will fail, if not 9.9 times out of 10. So those are very important criteria. And each one of those criteria, after you met that, there's a stage gate you go through and say, there's a decision process. Okay, I met revenue. Can I make profit? Yes, I can make profit. Can I scale? I can scale, yes, let's take it here. If not, do I sell it? Do I spin it off? Do I do different things with this? So there's different ways to deal with that. So it's a very complicated answer, but it takes more time than we have here.